Good afternoon. Welcome back to Passionate World Talk Radio Network, a wholly owned subsidiary of Global Media Network, LLC. Educate, enlighten, entertain, and let's not forget mindfulness, or what I call common courtesy. Welcome back to Lest We Forget Historical with your host, Lillian Caldwell. Yes, Elizabeth is my legal name, but I don't use it very often, so you get a sneak peek, as it were. On today's episode of Lest We Forget Historical, we're going to introduce a very old, ancient city, the Empire of Rome, which the United States has been compared to the decline and fall in retrospect. And we're going to talk about what ancient Rome can tell us about the fate of the current administration's tariffs. And it's written by Peter Edwell. And it was published of this year, which was like 2 days ago. As we all know, tariffs are back in the news, with the current administration introducing new tariffs of at least 10%, common, especially on two islands where only penguins live. I bet they were very excited, don't you think? And they justify slapping a 10% on the penguins. I guess if they want to sell their eggs to the United States, that they would be charged a tariff. Food for thought. The tariff 10% on a vast range of goods imported into the United States. And for other countries, the tariffs will be higher. Analysts have expressed shock and worry. We all know about the stock market crashing, with the ideas that it could lead to inflation and or a recession in the United States. As someone who spent many years researching the economy of ancient Rome, Mr. Edwell suggests it feels sort of familiar. He goes on to say that tariffs were used in ancient Rome, and for some of the reasons that our current government claims to be using them today. Unfortunately for the Romans, as well as the US of A, those tariffs often led to higher prices, black markets, and other economic problems. And like the US of A, the Roman Empire continued to expand and become richer, and its wealthier citizens demanded increasing amounts of luxury items, just like the USA, especially from Arabia, India, and China. China's always there. This included silk, pearls, pepper, and incense. There was so much demand for incense, for example, the growers in southern Arabia worked out how to harvest it twice a year. Pepper was found on an archaeological site as far north as Roman Britain. Around 70 CE, the Roman writer Pliny, Pliny, who later died in the eruption on Pompeii, complained that 100 million sesterces, Sesterces, a type of coin, drained from the empire every year due to luxury imports. About 50 million of them a year, he reckoned, was spent on trade from India alone. However, the cost of these imports were even more than Pliny had deduced. An Egyptian document known as the Muziris, Muziris, papyrus, from about the same time Pliny wrote, shows one boatload of imports from India was valued at 7 million sesterces. Hundreds of boats laden with luxury sailed from India to Egypt. And let's not forget, Egypt was a province of Rome every year. Palmyra, an ancient city in what's now known as Syria, in the 2nd century CE, An inscription shows 90 million sesterces in goods were imported in just 1 month. And in the first century of BCE, Roman leader Julius Caesar gave his lover Servilia, mother to Brutus, of course, who murdered Julius Caesar, imported black pearl worth 6 million sesterces. It's often described as one of the most valuable pearls of all time. So, while there was a healthy level of trade in other direction, with the Romans exporting plenty of metalwares, glass vessels, and wine, the demand for luxury imports were very high, like today. Lithium for computer parts, car parts for your car. Yes, cannabis, drugs from China. Makes you think. The Roman government charged a tariff of 25%, known as the Titarte, Tetarte, on imported goods. The purpose of the Titarte was to raise revenue rather than protect local industry. These imports mostly could not be sourced in the Roman Empire. A commentary today said building plants for cars is ludicrous because by the time these factories are built, the tariffs will be out. And it won't help anybody during that time while they're being built. Just something to think about. Many of them were in raw form and used in manufacturing items within the empire. Silk was mostly imported raw, as was cotton. Pearls and gemstones were used to manufacture jewelry. With the volume and value of Eastern imports at such high levels in Imperial Rome, the tariffs collective were enormous. Incidentally, comment, has our current administration told us what and where these tariffs monies are going to be used in? Another recent estimate about the tariffs that they funded around 1/3 of the empire's military budget. Yes, all administrations depend on their military. Today, economic experts are warning about the current administration's new tariffs, which he sees as a way to raise revenue and promote US made goods, can hurt us both in the US and the broader global economy, as shown in today's stock market. Today's global economy has been deliberately engineered, while the global economy of antiquity was not. But warnings of inflation effects of tariffs are also echoed in ancient Rome, too. Pliny, for example, complained about the impact of tariffs on the street price of incense and pepper. In modern economies, central banks fight inflation in the high interest rates, but this leads to reduced economic activity and less tax revenue. Reduced tax collection could cancel out increased tariff revenue. It's not clear to this writer whether or not that happened in Rome, but we do know that the emperors took inflation very seriously because of its devastating impact on the soldiers' pay. Comment, yeah, well, if you depend on the soldiers to do everything for you, from enforcement to fighting your wars, I'd get worried too. Another reason that ancient traders became skilled at was finding ways to get around paying tariffs to Roman authorities. The empire's borders were so long that traders could sometimes avoid tariff checkpoints, especially when traveling overland. This helped strengthen black markets, which the Roman administration was still trying to deal with in the 3rd century, when its economy hit the skids and inflation soared. This era became known as the crisis of the 3rd century. I bet Years from now, they're going to call this the crisis of the 21st century. And we just started it. I don't subscribe to the view that you can draw a direct line between Rome's high tariffs and the decline of the Roman Empire, but it is true that this inflation tore through third century Rome and weakened it, just like the tariffs are doing to us today. And just as it was for Rome, black markets loom as a potential challenge for the current administration. Given the length of its borders and the large volume of imports, there's already a large black market of getting eggs in from Mexico. But the greatest danger of the new U.S. tariff is the resentment it will cause, especially among our close allies, like Australia. We still have allies? That's interesting. We've managed to cut most of them off. That's why Japan and Korea have allied for China. And if you don't know it, Google it. Very interesting reading, folks. Roman tariffs were not directed at nations and were not tools of diplomatic revenge the way it is with the current administration. Rome had other ways of achieving that. So this article, as I stated, was written by Peter Edwell. He's an assistant professor in ancient history at McGuire University, and it was republished with permission from the conversation under a Creative Commons license. So there you have it. We wrapped it up. I want to thank you very much for joining us. This program, Lest We Forget Historical with Lillian, was brought to you by Conscious Research Solution. Go check us out, passionatworldtalkradio.com/research made simple blog. Go in, take a look at the tips that are provided in our blog, and then scroll down to the Calendly form or the blank form. You can receive a 15-minute free consultation, what we can provide for you, what we can do for you. Wipe the sweat from your brow. PWTRN is here to help you. And also Ruby.ai. Check us out at aiwithlillian.com. It will take you to a page with Ruby AI. Read the testimonials. Read what Ruby AI can do for you. It's all in there. And then sign up for a monthly subscription. You won't regret it. In fact, you shouldn't have regrets at all. What's your call to action? Become involved. Are there events happening in the news that you feel like there's an historical parallel? Well, let us know. pwrnetworkllc@gmail.com. And better yet, if you do receive your news in the form of podcasts, donate to PWR Network or passionatworldtalkradio.com/donate and help maintain and keep this all woman run and owned internet talk radio station on the air. Once likened to PBS, you don't want us to move backwards. Thank you very much for listening, and remember, have a terrific weekend.